time to assemble. Let's make sure we've got everything we need. So we've got our panels, we've got our clips, and I forgot the stitch markers here. I have yet to realize it. And they'll help hold the panels together as we crochet them together. We need our button, our really pretty, slightly medium big size blingy button. And then you're going to need your zipper. As I said, 7-inch polyester, color that matches. I chose red and I love it. All right. And then you need your thread. You need your matching thread. But I'm also going to be using white thread for the zipper. And the red thread will be used for the button. And you're going to need your yarn needle. And you're going to need a house needle, though I use an embroidery needle here. You can use whatever house or embroidery needle you want. I chose embroidery because it's nice and tiny. But if you prefer a small house needle, go for it. All right. So there it is. I'm trying to show you just how small it is. And also you're going to need small pins. I have a few there that I forgot to mention as I recorded. All right. And so here are our panels. We have we use most of the skein, as you can tell. We have plenty for the border. So let's move all this other stuff out of the way. Moving it out of the way. And we want to make sure that our tails, as we, put the panels together right here, back panel, middle panel, and then the front panel, have all the tails on the right side as you look down at it. All right. All right, we need a way to hold these together. They're pretty thick, all 3 panels together, so I have clips here. You'll notice that I forgot my stitch markers. All right, so the clips help with holding these very thick panels together while sewing them together with your yarn and crochet hook. Yeah, very thick. Make sure it's all lined up properly, that it looks good where you do your clips. I've got a couple clips here, making sure it all lines up. You might have to stretch a panel a little more or less. All right, and then here I'm getting my stitch markers. And I'm grabbing that stitch marker. Here we go. Now it's good for marking where you start and where you end. And we're going to be starting, oh, my hand's in the way. You're going to want to start in the 11th stitch of all 3 panels. All right, my hand is in the way still. It'll move. You know what will help? Let's just go ahead and zoom in on this. Okay, zooming in. And I'm trying to make sure I'm in frame here. And looks like I am. All right, so we want to go into this particular stitch at the rounded part. That's how you know it's the stitch 11 that you need to put your stitch marker through. Then that same stitch on the middle panel. Now on the back panel, it's a little bit more tricky. So here's our first row of double crochet, and then under that is row 12. Well, we don't want to go into row 12. We want to go into row 11, because row 11 is where the border originally started for the first 2 panels. So get that in there, and that will show you where to start. Do the same on the other side. And on this side, row 11, row 11, and row 11. Now, when it comes to making sure it all lines up, you want to do your counting. I don't normally count because I'm pretty confident. I made these a few times, but this is for other people who don't know how. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and remove the stitch marker. And I will count, make sure we're all doing it the same way. And right now what I'm doing is I'm putting in the stitch marker for the ending, where my last stitch is going to go. Alright, and now we're going to start putting it together with the yarn. Grab your hook, and we're not doing a slip knot. Let me move the clip out of the way. What we're going to do is we're going to take our hook and go through that first stitch, the one that was indicated by your stitch marker, and go through the next panel. And make sure you're going into row 11 in the last panel. Now you're going to do your best to grab the yarn. I struggle a little bit, and you're going to pull it through all 3 panels, and then you're going to have your tail end on the bottom and your working yarn on top, and then you're going to yarn over and do a slip stitch into that. Alright, now to stabilize this, you're going to go through that same stitch again, all 3 panels, and then let's see if I can do it in frame. There we go. And then you're going to yarn over, pull through all those 3 panels again, excuse me, and slip stitch into the loop on your hook. Alright, here we go. So that will count as stitch 1. This is stitch 2. It's going right down the row, making sure they all match up. On slip stitch, and you're going to slip stitch through each panel, and the same stitch for each panel as well. Make sure they're lined up properly, and they're all slip stitches. So you're going to count down 11, and then you're going to do the bottom border with slip stitches the same, 21 of them, and then you're going to do 11 up. Alright, so get the clip out of the way, and now get ready for a time lapse. Alright, finishing up with the last few stitches here. This is going to be the last bit of crochet that we do. The next step will be sewing in our ends. I struggle there a little. And another stitch, making sure they're all lined up, getting the tails out of the way. There we go, one more panel there. Alright. Oh no, there, okay. Third panel, making sure it's the right row. And after we get this slip stitch done, alright, seems to be a bit tricky here. And now we're going to fasten off with a slip stitch. Snip, about a long enough tail to sew in, make your knot. Alright. Alright, sewing in our ends. I'm going to show you how to do it once, and then I will skip through that. But first, let's go ahead and do the first one. Now, I had a bit of a struggle here getting the yarn through the eye of the needle. Probably be good for me to invest in a bigger needle. Don't know why I haven't. And I've been doing this for quite a few many years now. Let's get that in. The struggle is real, everyone, when you use a insufficient needle. You know, I actually don't usually have this much problem. Maybe I do. Alright, here we go. I finally got it through the eye of the needle. Alright, so we're going to be hiding in the end in through these stitches on the top row. That's just adjacent to it. Alright, adjacent or next to? Next to it. Here we go. And now we've skipped all the way to the last tail. Alright, going through the stitches. I have a, my needle is a sharp needle because blunt needles, I'm not good with those for some reason. I need the sharp needle. Maybe that's why I haven't invested in a regular yarn needle. Anyway, there I am, struggling again to get the yarn on. Although it's more because of how short it is. Alright. Oh yay, it went through. And so I'm going to go through one more row to hide it in. See if I can do it. Alright, here we go. Going through. You can do it. Alright. It was going through. Oh, there we go. Yay. Oh, last tail end. Snip. And alright. Alright, now we're going to place the button. Let's open the flap and take a quick look at the nice pretty border that we just made. Then we're going to grab the loop from the middle panel and bring it over the front panel as far as it'll go without the front panel folding over. Hold it there. And then we're going to grab the flap and we're going to match up the buttonhole to the bottom of the loop. And then you're going to take your needle and you're going to put it right in the middle of that to indicate that's where it goes. And then carefully remove the top and the loop and put it to the side for now, because we are going to get our thread. We want to double it up, meaning you want to have the two ends tied together into a knot. And right here, that's what I'm doing. For some reason, I was thinking to make it into a slip knot. No, we want a regular knot. We want a nice fat knot. So here's doing the first knot. And do 3 or 4 to make that nice and fat, nice and sturdy. Double up on the knots. I have a bit of a trouble with it. I'm not very good with that. Just very carefully. It's a little hard to see because of how thin that thread is, but that was my second knot that I did. And I'm going to be doing a third here. Very carefully matching it up to make sure I get the knot in the same spot. And I'm doing it again. Like I said, you want to make sure it's nice, big, and fat. So that way it's not going to be going anywhere. Alright. Okay, so it looks like I have my knot now. Oh, another one. Wow, really thin thread then. Remember the white thread later on. It's not that thin. Okay. Snip. Leave about a 1/4 inch of thread there. And now we're going to, well, here I'm grabbing the shank button, realizing I don't need to grab it just yet. What we're going to do is we're going to anchor our thread into the single crochet that other needle was standing in. So very carefully bring through, not all the way through. Going to leave a bit of tail right there. And then we're going to grab our shank button. We're going to carefully put our needle through the shank. I'm trying to get it in frame and make sure it doesn't go through any extra holes you might have in it. Alright, and pull through. And then you're going to take my arm, going to take the tail and get in between the 2 threads, and you're going to pull and tighten that. So that way it holds the shank to the panel. Make sure it's only going through the first panel. Alright, it's a little difficult for me to show here. You want to make sure you have good tension. And I'm just trying to get the needle to go through the shank here, if I can. It's a little difficult. Yeah, like I said, a little difficult. It's okay if you have some trouble here. It's normal. It's very kind of finicky, I guess would be a good word for it. So there we go. We're going to pull. Make sure it's tight. You always want good tension while you're doing this. Now go through the yarn this time. pull it through, and my arm will get in the way quite a bit during this moment, or during the button sewing. Okay, and so now we're going to do is to help the button last. We're going to wind our thread around the bit of thread that is under the shank and on top of the yarn. I'm going to wrap it around. Oh, here we go. Zoom. Good. I'm going to wrap it around a few times. Make sure you get both threads on the same side. Doing this, wrapping around that, will actually help the button last. Yes, it'll be feeling loose, but it will stay. So I did that about 2 or 3 times there, it looks. And then you're going to either go through the shank or go into the yarn. I'm having a hard time showing you here. My hands are in the way. There we go. And you're going to pull nice and tight. Make sure that you keep your tension taut. And then you're going to go through the shank and just keep alternating between shank and yarn a few times, 2 or 3 at the most. And then here we go. Sorry about getting my hands in the way. This really is hard to show on camera. All right. Like I said, you want to make sure it's taut. And now you're going to see me quickly wind around that thread one more time. And we're going to go through that shank. And next, what we're going to be doing, we are going to knot it off. Now, leave a loop so that way you can knot this off. You're going to take your needle, you're going to go up through the loop, go up through the loop 2 times. So here's the first time. And then a second time. Don't drop your needle like I did. There's the second time, and very carefully pull and tighten, and there's a knot. But we want to be sure, so I did that knot on the shank. We're now doing this knot on the yarn. If you did the knot on the yarn first, you can just do it on the shank next. It'll still hold it in place. All right. Excuse me. So a loop, you're going to go through the loop twice again. This is the last knot we're making here. Pull tight, make sure it's taut. And now we're going to snip it off. Now the best way to make sure you're snipping enough off and not too much or not too little, let's actually place our button down, find the edge, and we'll go ahead and snip at the edge of the button. And now your button has been sewn onto the front panel of your wallet. Awesome. All right, and now we're going to make sure it works. So pull your loop over. There we go. That's good. For some reason, I do it again, and then I struggle. All right. And now we're going to bring the flap over and put the button through the buttonhole. Not really that hard to do. It's just because I'm showing it, it's a little bit more difficult than how it would be if I'm not doing it on camera. All right, there we go. So you could call it finished, but not really. We still need to put in the zipper. All right, let's grab our zipper. And we are going to take it out of the packaging. For me, it's just simply this little paper with a staple. Now let's prepare the zipper. First, we need to make sure that we are going to cut it at the right length. And how we're going to do that is we're going to open into our back pocket. Make sure the loop is on the button to keep it out of the way. Now these 2 ends here of the zipper, those are important. You're going to want to, let's get a little closer here. You're going to want to kind of fold them into that crevice of the left side of the pocket. A little tricky, but it can be done. And then you're just going to kind of stretch it along, and where it meets the other end of your wallet, you're going to place your finger there, and you're going to keep it there. maybe alternate the fingers, but just make sure you have that spot. And you're going to grab a pen, which I forgot to mention. Hopefully you have one on hand. And we're going to make a mark in that spot on both sides of the teeth of the zipper. That is where our sewn stopper is going to go into, to where it's going to get created. All right. So now about 3/4 of the way to the right of it towards the metal stopper it already has, you're going to do mark again on either side of the teeth. That's where we're going to cut it, but we do not cut it until after we have our new threaded stopper on. So I'm grabbing the white thread here so it'll be easier to see on the red zipper. Gonna need quite a bit, double up just like you did with the red. Now let's make that knot. Okay, so here is our nice big fat knot. I did it a few times, like how I showed with the red thread. Snip off, and you want your tail ends to be at least 1/4 inch long. And now we are going to put our thread from the bottom of the needle on either the right or left side of that first mark. And then you want to make sure it's close to the zipper teeth, but not too close to them. You're going to now insert your needle on the other side, bring under, and we're just going to do a stitch like that 3 or 4 times. This will definitely create a good stopper. Now, because my thread is white, it'll be seen a bit more easily when we put it in, but if you're using matching thread, you shouldn't worry about it. Alright, so now let's make sure it works. Alright, it's not going past the thread, and I had a lot of thread, a little more than I needed, but I'd rather have more, too much than too little. So we're going to knot on the back. So let's grab a few threads, and we're going to do the knot through, with the loop, and then go through the loop 2 times, and then pull and make a knot. And that's going to be in a few of the threads that we have underneath. Alright, make sure it's nice and tight, nice and taut. And then we're going to grab with our needle just a few small fibers into underneath the zipper teeth where it's a little tighter. Just a few fibers, not very many. There we go, zoom in. Alright. And then we're going to make a knot there with our loop. Go through twice, pull hard, and make sure that you carefully will have that knot in place. You don't want the knot to get made before it reaches the zipper. Excuse me. So there we go. There's my knot. And we're going to leave about an 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch amount of thread. I think I did about 1/4 there. All right. So we have our stopper created. Let's put that to the side. And now we can cut it. You only need just regular scissors, your craft scissors. We'll cut right through that polyester zipper. Well, right there, there's our stopper. Make sure you're cutting on the right side of your sewn stopper, because if you do it on the left, you will regret it. I did that before. It was awful. Yeah, make sure it's on the right, not the left. You don't want that zipper pull to then have no stopper and be too short. All right, here we go. Snipping the correct spot right here. You can use any craft scissors. It'll cut straight through quite easily. That's why we're using polyester. There we go. So there is now our prepared zipper. Pull the ends apart to the new sewn stopper, so that way it'll be matching like the front where the zipper pull is. All right, prepared zipper. There we go. So we have now prepared our zipper. It's time to make sure it fits in our wallet. So open your pocket nice and wide, and you're gonna put your zipper pull side into your left. Alright. And then you're going to just make sure, hold it in place, bring it down to the end, put that end in, and it should fit. Now we're going to open it. We're not going to work on this side. We're going to work on this side of the zipper first, the left side of the zipper. You're going to be sewing it into the middle panel. So this is very tricky, a little kind of a finicky thing here to put the zipper in. I keep pointing to making sure that the zipper is, to let you know the zipper is going to be sewn to the middle panel. Okay, so here I am putting it in, folding over that small piece just right before where the zipper pull starts. And we're going to want to pin that in place. Now, this is why I said to use small pins in the beginning, because bigger pins will just get in the way and not be as efficient. So I want to make sure we get the fold down with the pin, and you're going to grab a few of the fibers of panel 2. You're not going to go all the way through, especially when sewing it. And so you want to make sure that it is level, like the zipper teeth just barely poke above the panel. Make sure it's going to be straight, and go ahead and pin where you feel sees fit. For me, it's just about maybe inch and a half away from the other pin, the first pin. Like I've been saying, a little tricky. Even I have issues putting the zipper in. It's annoying. I'm going to be honest with you. This part is annoying, but when it's finished, it is just, oh, it feels so good. So there's our second pin. And see how they're not too far apart. Alright, I'm talking while doing this to give myself cues, and so my hand movement's not quite matching how I'm talking right now. So here we go. So now we need to pin down the end. That, making sure that your zipper teeth do not go too far up and past the height of the panel. I'm going to take our third pin. Well, I'm going to take my third pin, and I'm going to put that right in there at the end. The struggle is real. This whole zipper part, the struggle is real. So in that space I'm motioning to, you don't have to worry about not being able to get your stitch into the panel. It's not going to be exactly in the middle. My stitches are not perfect. And I do a back stitch because I feel that is the going to be the strongest stitch to hold it in place. So yeah, it's not going to be a perfectly straight line as I was motioning with my finger. That's okay. We're not looking for absolute perfection here. Because I'm using white thread, you'll see it, but you're using matching thread, so it's not going to matter too much about whether or not your stitches are perfect. Now we want to make sure we have plenty of thread, because we don't want to run out of any thread while we're sewing down this side of the zipper. It's going to be the same on the other side. So here we go. And we're doubling up our, putting the thread on our needle. I'm using the embroidery needle, as I mentioned before, nice and small. You'll see why I'm using embroidery needle, even though I said any house needle will work. But I'm putting my needle into my little cup here, so that way I'll have a good place to put it while I make my knot. We're doubling up the thread. We're always going to. That makes it stronger and better. And so here I am starting to make my nice fat knot. All right. Okay, so yeah, the knot. So here's my knot, and you want to leave about 1/4 inch of tail. There we go. Now let's get to sewing the zipper in. Make sure that you do not put your needle through the front panel. That will ruin your pocket. And now we are going to put our needle in that fold there in between so we can hide our big fat knot. Let's see if we can get a little closer. There we go. All right, so we're going to pull it through and hide the knot. All right. Now we're going to do our first stitch. It's a little hard for me to do this on camera, like almost everything. Pretty normal, I'm told. And the pin is in my way a little, but here I am. I'm going first through where the fold is, and then catching only a few fibers of the panel behind. I'm gonna then have our needle come out there. And let's see if I could just pull it through. A little tricky. There we go. Now you want to make sure you don't get any knots before you want to knot it. You want any tangles. I'm known for that. Alright, there we go. Okay, so this next stitch, which is what starts the back stitch, is also holding our little fold flap there down. So you're going to put your needle into where you came out of in that first stitch, and you're not going all the way through, just a few of the fibers. And what you want to do is you want your needle to come out a little past where it just came out. And that forms a back stitch. Now this pin is in my way, making it a little difficult. Here we go. Boy, my hands, they like to take up the screen. Here we go, doing the next stitch. Like I said, you don't want knots before you want to knot it. You don't want tangles. Alright. Now I came out a little too close to that one, but make sure that your needle, when you go to push it up from under, it's going to be about a fingertip away from where you last came out. But even I struggle with that. But that is the goal, is to have it be that way, but it's not particularly crucial. You just don't want the stitches too tiny or too big. Alright, I am getting close to finishing this side of the zipper. You'll see me trying to get the other end in place now, since I'm getting closer to it. And make sure that my thread is out of the way while I do this. You'll have to do the same. And okay, so you see where the flaps are, and at that corner of the pocket, well, it's going to fold in on itself, kind of similar to in the front, but not quite, because of how, I don't know, that's just how it is. And so we want to, here we go, zooming in. There, and I can kind of see the fold. If my thumb will get out of the way. There we go. And then now we're going to put in a small pin in that spot. Make sure to hold it in place. It's a little, I keep saying it's a little tricky. This whole thing is tricky. You just got to want it. Persevere. Alright. And I don't need this pin anymore, so I'm removing it. Remove your pins as you go along. And I'm going to continue my back stitching. And then pet the kitty. And then back stitching. It's, try not to poke yourself too much. It's too easy to poke yourself too much. Too easy for me to poke myself too much. Getting closer to the end here. Making sure that my back stitches are only going to be catching some of the fiber of the panel. Okay, we're getting closer to the flaps now. So here at the flap, we are going to sew it that fold down. So our needle is going to come out on the other side there, and then you're going to poke it through. And our next back stitch here is what's going to hold that flap down. You're going to go and then make sure you're underneath where you came out of originally. And that's going to help hold that in place. Let's do another stitch, then I'll show you how to knot it off. Actually, no, we're not going to knot off yet. I lied. We're going to be doing a few more stitches so we can make sure these two flaps at the end are secure. You're going to stitch as best as you can. Doesn't necessarily have to be a back stitch here, though that is helpful. Making sure that as you poke your needle through that you're catching a few fibers. I cannot reiterate that enough. And what we're also going to be doing, and to keep them in place, is we're going to sew the two pieces together with a stitch. And you want to make sure that you have good tension. And then you're going to go through them again to make sure that they hold together. I'm having issues with my tension, clearly. It's a little trick. I need to stop saying that. Anyway, so let's get our needle through. And now we need to knot it off. So have your needle go through to the back. And then you're going to grab some of the yarn. And you're going to have this little bit of thread here, go through the yarn and come out. There's a loop, go through it twice, and we're going to make our knot here and then snip off, making sure you have about 1/4 of an inch of the 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch of the tail left. Alright, so now I put my needle away for now. So let's prepare our knot for sewing in the next side of the zipper. Make sure it's nice and fat and that you're happy with it. Clip off the tail, leave about 1/4 of an inch, straighten your thread, and then bring your needle to the work. I'm going to come out from behind with a few fibers of the yarn. This is where our knot's going to be hidden. Come up through the back. Alright. There we go. And there is no easy way for me to show you guys how I anchored this down. You're going to have to get creative. Make sure that you get that flap sewn secured down to the yarn before we continue with the other side of the zipper. And I am continuing to struggle. Not really a positive thing to show or say about it, but it's that tricky. It just is. You need to anchor down however you see fit, making sure both flaps are down and on the inside. And try not to tangle your thread. And we're going to try to find a way to get this in here. There we go. Still not stuck though. But what we're trying to do here is after we get this anchored, we are going to pin that piece of that side of the zipper to the front of the last panel. The struggle is real, people, but we'll persevere like before. So I am reaching a point where I will be able to pin that side of the zipper in place. I'm just doing my last stitch here, making sure it's anchored to the yarn. And you're going to want to keep your tension taut, just like how we've been needing it to be each time we use thread. Alright. So I'm putting my needle down into the cushion. So I've reached a point where I can pin this piece down so that way it'll stay in place for when we pin the rest of it down. Alright, a little small pin as usual. And now we want to make sure it's lined up properly. So let's turn this around and put each side of the zipper up so we can see where that goes. And the flap on the other end is going to fold like how it did in the beginning of stitching this down. You can see where it's going to line up on the back panel. And we want to pin that in place. Very finicky. Well, not really so much finicky as my thread got in the way. So I put my needle down and I'm grabbing pin. And I'm going to be placing it in. So to keep it kind of straight, you want to have it pinned on the other side before you pin in the middle. I realized my head was in the way, and I changed my position. And I'm grabbing my pin, and I'm pinning down the other end of the flap of the zipper. Get that in place, have it fold over how you did on the other side. Make sure it's lined up again, that your zipper is going to be placed where you want it. Then we're going to grab another pin and put that in place. Now my arm is in the way. Here we go. I can show you better this way. I put down one pin there, continuing to make sure it matches up. And then another pin along the way. And now it's held down by the pins. And get my needle and thread ready. Make sure there are no tangles in it. Get the tension right. And now we can continue on to sew this side of the zipper to this the front of the third panel. Making sure that I'm coming from behind when I start off. And you're going to see that fold there, possibly, if you did it how I did. And I'm trying to show it here, but it's a little hard to. But that's where my needle's coming out of. And again, make sure you don't tangle your thread like I tend to do. I really do try to not have that happen. It's just inevitable for me. All right. And we're going to back stitch along here, just like on the other side. I didn't realize just how tricky this part really is until I started recording this. Alright, well, the time lapse is coming up of me doing the back stitches right here. I'm just trying to show you where my needle's coming out of. And then I'm just going to back stitch across. I'm doing the last few stitches here. Going right across. This side looks a lot neater than the other side. Not surprised by that. And as we're doing our last few stitches, we're going to want to make sure we keep that fold of the flap down where we have our pin in. And then when we reach that point, we can take the pin out. And then now what we're doing is we are going to sew these two ends together. So go through, grab some of the yarn. Here, I'm going to zoom in here for you so you can see what I'm doing more clearly. So you're going to go through the zipper. And you're going to grab some of the yarn, be a little discreet with it, and pull. So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be doing a few whip stitches where you just go around with just in and out, in and out. And here we go, pulling them together. Now if you're using a matching thread, this isn't going to show. If you're using a more contrasting color like I am here, you're going to see some of the threads as we finish. So pull them together about 2 or 3 times. And I did twice so far, it looks like. And I'm going to knot off now. So we're going to grab a little bit of the zipper fibers there. Make sure you've got your loop that's not tangled. And you're going to go through that loop 2 times. It's going to be our first ending knot. Make sure that gets down to the end, all the way to the zipper. We don't want the knot to be too far away from it. And we're going to make another knot. Here we go. Make sure your thread doesn't get tangled. Go through the loop 2 times to create the knot. And pull. And now we're going to snip off the tail. We're going to leave about 1/4 of an inch of tail. And then you can just tuck that in. Here we go, snip it. There we go. And you can just tuck those ends in. And now, the most awesome part, close your zipper, make sure it works. And I have some extra thread here that I can actually cut off. And I believe I do cut it off in a moment. Yeah, right here. All right. So, it's finished. You are now the proud owner of a crocheted wallet that you crocheted yourself following my teachings of it, my pattern. And it is just beautiful. All right, there we go. Everything works. Everything's in place. The wallet is finished.